Okay, I'll do an intro. Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
Larry, so good to
There's-
have you here. So Larry, ladies and gentlemen, there's no other word for him other than a genius of Giza, a genius in terms of deciphering the original geometries that were encoded into the Giza complex. And just now off camera, Larry was telling me about some amazing things he's discovered. For example, he's discovered an innocent looking shaft. May not have been so innocent when Giza was built. I suggested to him, did it contain an obelisk? Did it contain something interesting? Because it is at the center by 888 feet from other things on the Giza complex. He's also talked about the fine structure constant, something in physics which has been encoded into Giza, where the Hemiunu temple complex replicates the 1/10 billionth, a 1/10 billionth of the speed of light as a scale model. So, Larry, how are you, sir? And I have to add, Larry runs the American Institute of Pyramid Research. Did I get that right?
That's right. The American Institute,
Excellent.
right here. That's it.
That's it. Larry has met Zahi Hawass many times. He has been to Egypt many times, and he actually also runs tours, and he's discovered amazing things. Larry is the closest living being to an original Giza, if I can say that, an original Giza mathematician. Larry, you've told me some amazing things already. How are you doing?
You know, it's always good to talk with you, Charles. You have such an eclectic channel, as I've said before, and you are open to things that others might not be. You're willing to look at things that you don't agree with, and some channels don't seem to have that breadth of personality to be able to handle things that are outside their belief system. So, I appreciate you, letting me have a word here or something. So let me share a screen here, and let's see. I guess I'll go with this one right here. Okay, so something you said there, I wanted to say, I think I just put on my desktop. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. Right here. Okay, so this right here, you said that, I was with Zahi Hawass. Okay, this is the front page of the Cairo paper in 2014 when I was on tour with Zahi Hawass in the initial tour after the revolution. There had been devastation in Egypt after the revolution. All the hotels, the people that make their living in hospitality had just had no business. And so we made the front page of the Cairo paper because Zahi Hawass and 90 tourists are reopening tourism in Egypt. That man is pointing his finger to the story about us reopening tourism. And so that was a Polish tour company took a risk, and they did this tour. It was very successful. The next year, 2015, they did 3 tours, and now they're doing one like every 10 days. And tourism is obviously back. It's flourishing in Egypt. So, but I mentioned that because my relationship with Zahi Hawass is adversarial. Sometimes because I'm seen in pictures with him and stuff, people think I'm just but I don't join the alternatives that just immediately slam Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass, and they're hiding something. They're legitimate scientists in their own right. Zahi Hawass is a publicist, so publicists, they exaggerate. Any publicist does it. Hey, come to Florida. It's the best place in the world. So he can be forgiven a little bit for exaggerating things, and maybe he has hid some things at times, like the robot footage from up there that he was doing on his own. Well, any good scientist is going to do that. You do the research yourself first in your own lab before you go blabbing to the world. So I don't hold that necessarily against him. But anyways, I don't just always settle with their conclusions. Even with Mark Lehner, I've got somewhat of an adversarial relationship, although maybe a little bit closer to him. But I mentioned their names as being the standard Egyptologist. But I consider myself a total independent, and I look at all the independent channels. I pick and choose, like anybody. I'm eclectic, and I try and find my bearings. And so I don't immediately slam the Egyptologists. I don't immediately slam the alternatives. I like to be discriminating and pick the best from among them. So let me talk about the fine structure constant, since you mentioned that here. So here's on the screen is a you know, the enigmatic number, the fine structure constant. So what the fine structure constant is, it's one of the major constants, you know, in the universe. There's pi. A lot of people know that one, 3.14159. It defines the relationship between a diameter and a circumference or an area. And there's Euler's constant was discovered in the 19th century, you know, 2.718. And that governs a lot of things like the rate of interest growth and different things. And then there's phi, the famous golden proportion. But the fine structure constant, which the Greek letter alpha is used to talk about it, is the most mysterious. And it's called the God number by Richard Feynman, the theoretical physicist. And it has to do with the relation, at what energy level electrons either emit or absorb an electron. So it's the number is on the verge of the physical world, electrons. Everything is made of electrons around us, you know, protons, neutrons, and electrons, and photons, light, which are more mysterious, ethereal, spiritual in a sense. And so this number, you know, is sort of like between the two worlds of body and spirit. And so it's magical and mystical. And yet, you know, the physicists who study it and are amazed by it and say it's this God thing, they also say the universe wouldn't exist without it. So it's an important number, and the number is 1 over 137, or the reciprocal is 137. So let me show you something I was doing with, with that down here. Let's see. All right. I got to find, okay, I guess this is it right here. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so I did a video that's I think it's one of my most recent YouTube videos on the fine structure constant and how it is embedded in the Great Pyramid. But here's a second way it's embedded. So watch that video to see the first way. Here's a second way right here. So let me just start with this screen right here. Okay, so this is an alpha and omega that I discovered in the Great Pyramid. Wow. You know, there's the 4 letters at the entrance to the Great Pyramid, the tetragrammaton. I've studied those. There's an alpha and omega on the southwest corner of the coffer in the King's Chamber, a very plain alpha and omega that Robert Grant discovered. And there's this alpha and omega, which is in the descending passage, right near the scored lines that are in the descending passage, sometimes called the entrance passage. And so, you know, it's got like a Templar cross up above it if you look close up there. And so it's got, you know, an alpha right there. It's got an omega, if you see it around it. And then it's got this inverted, you know, alpha, which again made me think of the first letter of the tetragrammaton that's at the entrance to the Great Pyramid, which is pronounced Debar, which is my family name. My maternal grandfather is James F. Dubar, which the name means word or holy of holies. So now you've got this V, you know, in there. And so, you know, I just think that could be channeling the holy of holies. Okay. So here we are in the King's Chamber. There's the coffer. Okay. So, there's a picture I took in 2014 when I was with Zahi Hawass of the entrance. This is the entrance that comes into the King's Chamber, okay? And here's another view of it. I took this picture in 2014. Okay, so the coffer, which is in there, will not fit through that door upright. But if you turned it sideways, and I didn't get my graphic to do sideways, but if you turn it sideways, it will fit through there, okay? So you head now into the King's Chamber. Okay, so there it is.
So there's the sarcophagus sitting there alone, and if you turn it on its side, and you think, all right, because if you did it vertically, it wouldn't. You turn it on its side.
Okay, so this is taking the coffer
to the height, and precisely 5
into the King's Chamber.
Combination, 5 and 6 hermetic numbers.
Okay, so this is the number of coffers that fit there.
Say, well, why did they choose that particular length? I wondered how many would fit in. There's not an exact number, at least not a perfect number of lengths of.
So there it is. There. Okay, so So exactly 137.5 of those coffers fit inside the king's chamber. Okay. Now, 137.5 is a number. Here's the golden angle. Okay. So you can see this, here, the green is to the red, and what's shown there as the red is to the blue. That's, the phi proportion. Okay. And so when you do that, you get an angle of 137.5. So this is just showing, the golden proportion. A is to B as, as AB is to the whole thing. Okay. So if the circumference of that circle right there is 432, a very important number, because the Great Pyramid is a 1/43,200th scale model of the Earth. And so 432 is related to the precessional cycle. So if you take the circumference of that circle to be 432, then the diameter is 137.5. So you've got 137.5 as a diameter, but the golden angle is 137.5. Okay, so that's interesting that there's 137.5 coffers fit inside the king's chamber. Now that doesn't seem to be by chance. There's so much that's intentional in Giza. The fact that there's the one piece of furniture. Here's the Great Pyramid, bereft of anything. There's no gold, no silver, no hieroglyphics. It's just this empty industrial room, except for this coffer. And then this empty coffer. But this empty coffer is exactly 137, fits in exactly 137.5 times inside the king's chamber. Okay, but so there's the 137.5. But 137.5 is not the fine structure constant. The fine structure constant, there it is right there. This is Richard Feynman, who wrote books about it, taught courses about it. That's the fine structure constant. So just like pi is a certain constant, phi, this is the fine structure constant. And that's 1/137. Okay. So, and the reciprocal is 137. So those are the numbers that are usually associated with the fine structure constant, which is called alpha. So there's 137.5 of these in the king's chamber. But listen, but half of this coffer is space. It's well known that the amount of physical granite there is equal to the space. So the space volume is equal to the physical volume. Okay. So because of that, the physical part of the coffer takes up 1/137th of the king's chamber, because the inside's hollow.
Wow.
So here is the fine structure constant. This is unbelievable. This is, the point is, people say, oh, that's crazy. It's crazy. Oh, really? Get a little boy, make blocks. I think Mad Simpson, an Ancient Architects, he made a model, I think for his kids, but he made a model that he's shown on some of his videos of this very thing. So make a block and you fit it in, and it's going to be exactly 137.5 of them. But the middle, the half isn't there. So the coffer, the physical part of it is the fine structure constant number. Unbelievable when you consider what all, because to people that are listening to this and what's the fine structure constant, even the physicists that have found it don't understand it. And Richard Feynman said, we'll never get a formula for it. Robert Grant, my friend, found the formula for alpha. He did. You just go to his Instagram page. He's writing papers about it with his mathematician friends. So it has been discovered, but it's still mysterious. So if you don't understand that, it's fine. Even the physicists who know what the number is don't exactly understand it. It's this mysterious number that's related to physical matter and light. So it's like, to me, what it speaks of, there's nothingness is 137 of these. In other words, you could take the physical part, which is 1/137th, or the nothingness, which is also 137. And so the 137 and the 1/137 in the king's chamber, to me, it symbolizes resurrection. And what does an empty coffin say? The guy's not here. The mummy made it. He made it to the next life or whatever. He's not here. So you might not agree with that, but the point is that that's what's being said. Okay, so there's that. So that is another example of the fine structure constant in the Great Pyramid.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So let me stop sharing for a bit just so we see our faces here, because another thing I wanted to talk about. you mentioned the 110 billion thing. All right, let me say something about that, because that is amazing too. Let's see where I could go to show you something here. Let me just start like this. I'll go to let's see. Let's see what I've got out here. Yeah, I guess I put it away. Let's see. I'll go to my desktop here, and I made a folder for this interview. It's got some things in it. And okay, so this one right here. Okay, let's look at this. Here's a picture. That's not the one I want. Let's get rid of this guy. And let's look at this picture. Okay, so if you go to Washington, D.C., you know, a lot of people go to the National Air and Space Museum. It's a, you know, a great museum. Well, this is an outside part of the museum. It's called the Voyager exhibit. So this mother and her kids are looking at the sun. And those other poles there are, you know, Mercury, Venus, Earth, at a 1 to 10 billionth scale. In other words, that sun is 1/10 billionth the size of the sun. And the display of Mercury and Earth are also exactly proportional at 1/10 billionth how far away they are from this sun. And if you take a 15-minute walk from this spot, you'll be at Pluto. 15-minute walk. And again, so everything's proportional, both in distance and size. And so the curators of this museum have used a scale of 1 in 10 billion. So just to show you another picture of it, let's just do an overhead shot of the mall there in Washington, D.C. So here's a picture. So you can see the National Mall. So if you can read that, you can see the entry point down at the bottom. Then you go to Mercury, Venus, Mars, and then you see how far away, a 15-minute walk to go all the way to Pluto, you know, past by the National History Museum there. Okay, so I was mentioning to Charles before. So I don't know if I can find it quickly, but I'll just say it here then. The Hemiunu template, which I've discovered in the Great Pyramid, it's where the air shafts of the King's Chamber exit. So that point is at the 103rd course. It's 200 royal cubits across. So the Great Pyramid's like this, where the air shafts exit is. So if you take that slice out of the Great Pyramid, you have a square of 200 royal cubits. Okay, 200 royal cubits is 104.7 meters. 104.7 meters. So I was showing Charles that I'm going to show you something from our little pregame setting this meeting up today that you're watching here. Okay, so here was our conversation. So I said, "Are we wearing ties?" Because you notice Charles wearing a tie, and I've got a sport coat on. So we're kind of dressing up for this interview. And he says, "So 1047 my time." He's telling me when we're going to get on. And so I told him that's the number. That's the Hemiunu template, 104.7, 104.7 meters. So unbeknownst to him, that number, that's what I'm talking about now. So that 104.7 is, now get this, remember, Hemiunu, his name means human. He's bringing down to human scale, just like the museum curators did to make the solar system understandable. They took a 1/10 billionth scale, Hemiunu at a 1/10 billionth scale, pi over the speed of light is 104.7. Now, pi is in the Great Pyramid. That's obvious. We can show that in many ways. Many people know that. But Hemiunu, who's the architect of the Great Pyramid, who's got this 104.7 square template that I found a whole bunch of things it relates to, so it's just incredible that pi divided by the speed of light, 299,000 meters per second. Just do the math. As a matter of fact, I showed my calculator. I did this on the calculator just before on this call. There's my calculator, Charles. All right. Wow. If you can see, there's your 104.7.
Wow.
And it's to the 10 billionth. That's what I did is I simply, go to Google, find out what the speed of light is, 299,000, pi. I just punched the pi, on the calculator. There's a pi button. So to make sure I got the value right, I just punched pi down here. So I took pi divided by, I put in the speed of light, I got this number. It's to the 10 billionth, it's 104.7, the very time you set for this meeting. So that gives an example of one of the ways I work. Well, I believe in science and rationality. I also believe in being led by the spirit, but just providence, singularities, coincidences, whatever, And so I knew this was one of the things I want to talk about, because the time you set this meeting is 104.7. So there
Larry,
we go.
synchronicities means that something is real, and everyone who makes discoveries finds synchronicities. Even people make synchronous discoveries at the same time. You know, they come up.
Yeah, that's true.
Independent teams come up with the same things at the same time as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and most researchers, even that experience that, don't write about that in their paper, because they want to be accepted in the scientific community, and they themselves recognize that it happened, but they know that's not scientific, and I respect that, you know. But I do believe what you're saying, that I think people experience that, you know. As a matter of fact, Gary Osborne is a great researcher, and he wrote that book about the Rendlesham, UFO incident, and the amazing stuff that came out of that. And I'll just put it in my own terms. You know, you have to study the way Osborne talks about it. He's more or less saying, like, wow, like what I'm finding here, I'm being led somewhere. Now, he's just trying to be scientific. He's trying to just, but he has to admit that there seems to be another power operating here, you know. And so I've experienced that same kind of thing, including, you setting the time of the meeting, which is an odd time. You didn't say 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You said 10:47, 104.7. I mean, that's plainly an example of what we're talking about. So yeah,
it was an odd thing for me to write. You know, I was probably being directed by the universe to write that.
There you go. So we're in sync. You know, the Alpha and the Omega is here. So so one thing that I'd maybe like to mention is yesterday I happened to notice that my book Enoch, about the Orion correlation theory. So Robert Pahl, decades ago, he's written books about it. He's done co-authorship with Graham Hancock on it. I think Adrian Gilbert's, different people. He's written about the Orion correlation theory, which he discovered as recently as 2017, when he wrote a book about the Sphinx with Robert Schoch. He put in the appendix, he was still pushing for scientists to accept the Orion correlation theory. So over the decades, he's tried to build a respectability to something that, that's that esoteric stuff. We're not going to get into that. And of course, the Orion correlation theory says that the 3 pyramids in Giza, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, are in the same orientation as the 3 belt stars of Orion, Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka. So there's a relationship between those 3 belt stars and the 3 pyramids. And Pahl, again, he's written books about it. He's still, as recently as 2017, pushing for scientists to accept it. So what I did, and I say I'm the only person in the world that's done this, and I say that not to boast. I say it every time I tell the story. I say it so that somebody hears this and says, "No, I've done it." I want to find other people that have done but I took every star of the constellation Orion, put it down to Earth, and went to it. Not just the 3 belt stars. Like if my wife asked me later, well, how'd that interview? How did Charles look? What was he wearing? Oh, he had a great belt. Well, what kind of hat did he have? I don't know. What did he talk about? I don't know. What is in the extra? Because I don't know, but he had a great belt. Nobody is known by their belt, except for maybe a heavyweight champion, got his belt. But, so the point is, Pahl stuck for decades. I think in the beginning, he tried to find other stars. He came to some dead ends. And so he just focused on the 3. So what I did is I said, dude, if it's really the Orion, you don't have an Orion correlation theory. You've got a belt theory. I want to take all of Orion. So I followed where the Egyptians placed Orion on Egyptian soil, and I went to all the places, and I wrote a book about it. So I just noticed on Amazon yesterday that somebody really slammed me in the review of the book, and I could tell they didn't even read the book, but that's fine, And so, I'm mentioning that because that's another one of my discoveries. So again, so the guy didn't even have a name. His name was something like a ancient Egyptian protector. Like, in other words, he's hiding under a name like that. I said, my name's Larry Pahl. Okay.
Yeah.
And the things he said were just wrong. I mean, he slams me. It's, he's like this expert, because I've looked at some of his other reviews, and he is a legitimate Egyptologist, and his other reviews of people that are standard Egyptologists are like traditional, looking at things. But all of a sudden he comes to something that's a little different. Because in my book, and here's why it's different, I talk about things like we just talked about Providence. I was led by a cab driver. And so he slams that I've got a cab driver in the book, but this book wasn't a forensic science. I'm not like Pahl, who in 2017, in the appendix to the book he wrote with Schoch about the Sphinx, he is begging scientists to accept his discovery. I'm not doing that. Because I know some people aren't. I'm not making this scientific. I just think the Egyptians did it. I tried to show that. And in my chasing down on Egyptian soil, the places where, the Enoch, the Egyptian New Orion Connection Hypothesis. So instead of the Orion correlation theory, I've got the Orion Connection Hypothesis. So it's instead of theory, I've got hypothesis. Instead of correlation, I use connection. But it's the new, because Bavals is the old one. So I've got the Egyptian New Orion Connection Hypothesis. And it says that, just like the picture shows, I take all the stars of Egypt, or of Orion, and where they are in Egyptian soil. And so that is unique. And, I did it as a travelogue, really, because the things I discovered were of the order of 104.7, the time of this meeting. It's not scientific, but it's this providence that says, wow, Charles, you were in touch with the universe, because you set a time. It wasn't like 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock, normal times you set for meetings. It was this odd number. It just happens to be 1/10 billionth pi over the speed of light. Okay, so, and it's the Hemiunu template. So the same kind of things led me here, but that doesn't mean you can discount them. I mean, obviously some people will discount them because I'm talking about synchronicities that happened that led me to see something. It's not, I'm not putting, the virtue's not you setting the time of 1047. The virtue is in what that symbolizes that you didn't even know. And that's the kind of thing that happened. I was led by a providence, but it led me to something that was real. As you said, these things are real, So the guy was slamming me and just the things. So I actually wrote a review then, because I didn't know how to answer him. He doesn't have a name. So I just wrote a review of my own book, but the review is to just comment on the other review, And so anyway, so I mentioned that to say that, I'll never, sell millions of books like Pahl. This really, is a small circulation. It's not, I'm small peanuts. But it's real. I'm sorry, it's real, and it's an interesting read. I just think it is, because sometimes, because I'm rewriting it. I talked with you about that one time. You made some good suggestions about how to rewrite it, and I appreciate that. And I know you were right. I don't know if you remember when you gave me some guidance on this, but I know the things you said to me were right. You really, and so that's one of the reasons I want to rewrite it. Plus, I've seen other things. So I'm not a perfect. Writing is a difficult discipline, right? Am I right? I mean,
yes. It takes years to write even one book.
Yeah. So I do want to redo this and do it better, but it's not going to be a scientific book where I'm just quoting standard Egyptologists and talking about their archaeoastronomy, because, and here, I really want to say this, because I really stressed in the beginning, how am I going to talk about the as above, so below, the Egyptian maxim? How do I say that? Because I'm not a spheroid geometrist. I don't know spheroid geometry. I can't. And then what finally came to me gave me confidence to write the book is I don't have to be. I'm finding what the Egyptians did. Maybe they did something, like me finding, the 104.7, the pi over the speed of light. I didn't make that. It's in the Great Pyramid. When we say we discovered something, we discover something that already exists. So it's not, I didn't even create it. Hemiunu did, or Enoch did, or somebody. They get the credit. By discovering it, I get involved with it, but they did the work. I could never figure out how to make a building that has pi and the speed of light embedded in it. I can't, but I discovered somebody else did. Okay. So that's the confidence I got. I realized this is what the Egyptians did, how they did it, how their Leonardo da Vinci's did it, which is what this guy was slamming me for. It's not scientific. I don't know how they did it. I'm just saying I found it. And that gave me confidence to realize I don't have to be the expert on the astroarchaeology. I just need to find what they did, and then somebody else can figure out how they did that, but I'm just saying, I'm just going by what's there. So, that gave me confidence. That was the level at which I could write, do this.
Amazing. And yes, synchronicities are the way things happen. Even the interview we're doing today, it was a mutual willingness, wasn't it? When a mutual willingness happens, synchronicities occur. And
well,
yes,
and something changed in you, because I know you've been, and as we all should, just like me thinking about rewriting the book, you've been thinking about centering your channel, or, like maybe, am I right about that? You've gone through some iterations of trying to, because you're, whereas, like you take ancient architects, Matt, everyone starts the same music, and they've got that consistency, and so I envy that, but I can't do it. It seems at times you've tried to do that too, but then you have an introduction but then you do a different one the next time. And that's like me. So, but you're searching to find it. We all have to do that because, YouTube is, gearing us down now in the logarithm. Independent channels don't do as well since that Logan Paul incident, and they got slammed for promoting fake news people. So therefore, the only people they promote are the Smithsonian, Harvard, the New York Times, and you and me aren't that, brother. We're not the Smithsonian.
Look at what we're doing. It's like 10 levels higher, orders of power than what they're doing, because we're bringing in other disciplines into what the Egyptians did, and what you're doing is unbelievable.
That's really the point at which YouTube turned, because they took so much flack because of that Logan Paul incident, and they changed a bunch of rules about making videos and stuff. Like you had to then get so many subscribers before you could get a paid channel and all that kind of stuff. And now they've, everybody says, even Matt Simpson, as big a channel as he has, he's still an independent, and he's talked about how he's been hurt too. So even the big channels that used to, get a lot of punch are still feeling the pinch. And then you had a very, robust channel, and you've been feeling the pinch too, because I've read you, talk about it.
Yeah, it doesn't move. The subscribers don't move. It stays the same for years and years.
Yeah, exactly. And you just know that there's more people that would be interested in your stuff, but they're not really trying to, help you find them because of the Logan Paul incident. So anyways, what else did I want to talk about? One thing that I found is, that Robert Grant and Alan Green have shown that Da Vinci went to Egypt. He was in Egypt. I mean, you've got to see it, but it seems undeniable once you see the evidence. Wikipedia won't tell you that, but I respect Wikipedia, but a lot of times if things are a little bit off the beaten path, it doesn't pick it up. So he encoded the Great Pyramid in the Vitruvian Man. I was told the Vitruvian Man is the second most famous, picture. I guess the Mona Lisa is the first, but the Vitruvian Man is the second most. So in the Vitruvian Man, this man that's, in the circle and square, it's like man in relationship to the universe, and everything. And Da Vinci plainly encoded the Great Pyramid in the Vitruvian Man. I've done programs about it. To me, it's undeniable. And as a matter of fact, some of the horizontal lines that Da Vinci has on the Vitruvian Man are not in your physique. There's no horizontal line across here, but the places where he has horizontal lines all match passages in the Great Pyramid, except for the upper ones, which seem to be where the void is being found. So it seems like Da Vinci knew of passages still to be discovered. So another thing that Da Vinci has, he's got a pyramid-like mark above the belly button of the Vitruvian Man. Just look at it. Just go. It's easy to find. Go to the Vitruvian Man. Do a close-up. On your program there. Look at, and there's a pyramid shape above the belly button. Well, we don't have a pyramid shape above. You look at your belly button. There's no pyramid shape up there, but Da Vinci has it there. And I discovered that not only is the Great Pyramid embedded in the Vitruvian Man, but the Menkaure pyramid. That little pyramid shaped thing above the belly button really encodes the Menkaure pyramid. I've done videos about that. Okay, so Will Wire, who's a great graphics guy in Boulder, Colorado, he's been to Egypt with me. He showed me that on the arms of the Vitruvian Man, there are some slanted lines. Instead of the straight horizontal lines, most of what Da Vinci has, it's got the square, it's a circle, it's got the horizontal line, so it's all square, but there are these slanted lines on the arms, right near the biceps. So I followed those lines down. So you can place, as I said, the Vitruvian Man on the Great Pyramid. Da Vinci intended that. Okay. Well, it's Sacred Geometry Decoded has shown me, and others have seen it. There's a 5 times Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. Picture the center of Khufu, then take a line down to the very center of Menkaure, and then draw a straight horizontal. That pyramid is exactly the angle of the Great Pyramid, and it's exactly 5 times the size of the Great Pyramid. And I've shown by anyways, I've documented the third angle too to show that it's really meant to be there. So if you now superimpose the Vitruvian Man over that Great Pyramid, the one that's plainly on the Giza Plateau now, top is in the center of Khufu, The vertice on this side is the center of Menkara. Okay. If you overlay it, those lines point down. And Robert Grant showed me a picture of the Philosopher's Stone, 1688, by a guy named Mayer, and he was drawing a pic. You know, the Philosopher's Stone is an emblem. It's like
I
a
know
logo.
that picture. Yes.
Yeah, and so if you that picture, he's drawing on a map. So there's something about the Philosopher's Stone. So Da Vinci was doing that. He was drawing it, and so I took the Vitruvian Man. I did a program about this, laid it over that pyramid on Giza the same way you'd lay it over the Great Pyramid, and so I just followed those lines down in Giza. Now you're getting south of Giza. You're just going into the desert in Egypt, and I did a program about this. It led to a V. Those lines where they converged from the bicep curve line and the bicep curve line, which is on the Vitruvian Man. Again, I'm not making this stuff up. Da Vinci put it there. To me, it's a rational conclusion to put the Vitruvian Man over the Great Pyramid itself, but now over the Great Pyramid, the 5 times Great Pyramid, which is what I did. That's really there, you know. So people that don't believe that, okay, you can leave, but it's really there. Okay, so then I followed down and into the Egyptian desert, and the place where it comes on Google Earth, there's a V. So now I followed where the lines from the V went. One of them went straight through the holy shaft that I discovered and through the center of the Great Pyramid to the entrance of the Great Pyramid. That's where one of the lines went from that V. And the other line went down to the Pyramid of Lahun, a pyramid of the 12th dynasty Renaissance that's down in Fayum. Okay, so you've got one. So it's amazing. Think about it. You've got all these things coming together, which again, people that don't get this, they think I'm crazy. That's fine. You can think that. That's okay. You know, I'm not offended. I'm not offended. But to me, every step we took in that is rational. Okay. Da Vinci was in Egypt. He did channel the Great Pyramid in the Vitruvian Man. The Vitruvian Man is meant to be placed over the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid has a 5 times representation on the Giza Plateau. Many have recognized it, Sacred Geometry Decoded and others. And so you place the Vitruvian Man over that pyramid the same way he's supposed to be placed over the Great Pyramid. You take those 2 lines that are on the elbows, Da Vinci put them there. They must be there for some reason. Again, these horizontal lines are passages in the Great Pyramid. They are. And you don't have horizontal lines on your chest, but the Vitruvian Man does, and they match the passages in the Great Pyramid. So I follow those lines down. They come to a V formation. Look at my video. It's there. I'm not making it up. Why would I make this up? You know, I'm not Sitchkin. I mean, so there's a V, and then the one line points up to the Great Pyramid. So think about it. Da Vinci has the Great Pyramid and the Vitruvian Man. He takes us down into a part of Egypt and then points back to the Great Pyramid and then also points to the Pyramid of Lahun. Well, that's like the southern shaft in the King's Chamber. The southern shaft points to Al-Nitak, which is the star in Orion that represents the Great Pyramid. Because remember, the 3 stars go to Khufu, Khafre, and Menkara. So it's Mintaka goes to Menkara, and Al-Nitak goes to the Great Pyramid. So the Great Pyramid points to itself. Apart from Da Vinci, the southern shaft of the Great Pyramid points to Al-Nitak, which in the Robert-Bauval correlation is the Great Pyramid. So the Great Pyramid points to itself, and here Da Vinci has this line off the Vitruvian Man, which is in the Great Pyramid. This comes down to a place in Egypt. Remember that drawing you've seen of Mayer and the Philosopher's Stone drawing the sacred geometry onto a map. So we're being kind of told, well, don't just do sacred geometry in your head and be a little mathematician. You're on paper and you're getting all your stuff. Take it to the real world. And it comes to a V in Egypt, and one points to the Great Pyramid and the other one points to the Pyramid of Lahun. It's like amazing.
That's incredible. Larry, there is a possibility that Da Vinci, he had books which are no longer available in his possession because Gavin Menzies in his 1492, was it 1452, which I'm sure you've heard of, he actually claims that Da Vinci had in his possession Chinese books and other books of the world, books with maps of the world, books with, he reckons, Chinese inventions, but it could be books with ancient technology in them. And maybe Da Vinci had some of the knowledge of the Giza pyramid builders in his possession.
You know, I think so. And another reason I think so is I did a video on the overlay of the Great Pyramid in Washington, D.C., and then which is there. I'm sorry, it really is. Watch the video. And the overlay over the Vatican, and it's plainly there. And what's amazing is the statue by Bernoulli, or not Bernoulli, I forgot the man's name, but he's an architect of like the 16th century. He has a fountain that's there, and he's the one that designed the square. Remember, there's an Egyptian obelisk at the center of the Vatican, so it's not too far-fetched to think the Great Pyramid could be there, because there's an Egyptian obelisk in the center of St. Peter's Square. And so the lines that radiate from that obelisk match the shafts in the Queen's Chamber, which weren't discovered until 1872 by Wayman Dixon. There's no record anywhere of the Queen's Chamber shafts until Wayman Dixon, on a hunch from Robert Menzies, who was a shipbuilder, and he said, maybe you should look in the Queen's Chamber for air shafts just like there are in the King's Chamber. And so Wayman Dixon, who was working with C.P. Isaac Smith, the Astronomer Royal for Scotland, he measured in the Queen's Chamber where would be the analogous point to the King's Chamber, tapped a little bit, and he found it. So for the first time now, since it was built, I say 4,500 years ago, you can say 10,000 years ago, but for the first time since it was built, now we know there's air shafts coming out of the Queen's Chamber. Oh, but guess what? The overlay that I discovered, I did a program about it, those lines on the Vatican, designed long before 1872, it's been there long before 1872, plainly show knowledge of the Queen's Chamber air shafts. And so I would think it would be the same thing. The Vatican's known to have a bunch of books that other people don't have, And so you're saying Da Vinci had other books that people don't have. I totally believe that, because they knew, because nobody knew about this till 1872. We thought, So yeah, definitely there's a lot. Well, and that's coming out in so many ways, because one of the things the alternatives, wrap the Egyptologists for is, they don't see the advanced civilizations that have declined, but their evidence. Well, that's what we're saying. We're saying, in saying what we just said about the books that Da Vinci had, there's these books that probably go back to that time when there seemed to be a single world language. There was certainly a single language of megaliths, that because there's so much relationship between Stonehenge and Teotihuacan, and the numbers show that there was a single knowledge of the earth at that time. So we only thought that the modern age with technology and the internet, that we now have a worldwide. No, they had a worldwide network before we thought people had the capability of having a worldwide network, before the internet. You know what I mean? So that's plainly there. So this would just be the things we just talked about, the knowledge that Da Vinci had, the knowledge that the guy that designed the St. Peter's Square, they had access to some of those things that go back to that era where this knowledge was there. So,
exactly, Larry. So I've become convinced that there are books that no longer exist that these people drew upon. For example, even Shakespeare drew on lost Italian books, Italian plays and things. Totally. And I noticed that there seems to have been a strong Renaissance Italian investigation of Egypt, and either those books haven't survived or they're just in Latin. And the thing is, these days, people actually can't read Latin. No one can read Latin except for the people in the Vatican. Even the medieval historians, actually, I found that, because I'm a medieval historian, and my professor told me, I said to him, the other professors, they can read Latin, right? And he said, no, they're pretending. So no one can actually read these old books.
Gallia est divisa in partis tres. Okay, so yeah, I took 4 years of Latin.
Oh, good work, Gallia. Okay.
It's a famous speech from Caesar. A lot of Latin students have to memorize that speech. Okay, so yeah.
So it's Cicero, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's like the burning of the Alexandrian library. Same thing. I mean, there were books there that plainly, because I mean the guy that we credit with figuring out the circumference of the earth, the Greek guy, what's his name, Eratosthenes or something,
Yeah.
Eratosthenes. Oh, he was only the keeper of the Alexandrian library.
Bingo.
Oh, so we wonder where he found out the circumference of the earth. Okay, really. So yeah, because everything that the Greeks had, the Egyptians had. We you just study all of them. I mean, Plato, the geometry, Euclid, all of them were in the Egyptian mystery schools. So, and even the Greeks say they don't understand their own legends, like Hercules, whatever. They don't know where they came from. So even their own legends, they don't know where they came from. Well, they came from from some other past. So all that we attribute to the start of Western civilization. You take a Western civilization course, you study Greece first. Greece is, they're everything. Well, Greece got everything from Egypt. So, that's one of the reasons I've dedicated my life now to studying Giza and the Great Pyramid stuff, because it, and I'm not as interested in Middle Kingdom and, the Ptolemaic pyramid stuff, because it's the old kingdom where this stuff, these secrets seem to be hidden. So I just, I'm like, I like studying prophecy. I like studying esoteric things. So that's why I focus on Old Kingdom Egypt, because I think there are truly secrets hidden that are meant to be, like the Great Pyramid. Stephen Braben has a really nice site in the Great Pyramid. It's called greatpyramids.com or something, but Stephen Braben, Brabin, he's done some brilliant work that he's making available now to the world. And he talks about the way that the builders hide stuff, but they mean to. Well, they hide it so no one will ever find it. No, they find it so only they hide it so only the searchers will find it. I mean, I really believe that. So that's what I'm engaged in. I'm engaged in the search for finding these things that, today we can understand to a certain extent. Some people think we're in this great new, we're on the verge of the age of Aquarius and all this. And well, in some aspects we are. On the other hand, this is a cancel culture. You say certain things, you can be deprogrammed, deplatformed, hoodwinked, your Twitter account taken away. We see it happen to people that are saying strong things of a certain political bent, especially. That's why Da Vinci decoded things. That's why these artists decode things. That's what they don't want to have the fate of Galileo. They don't want to be tried in the tribunal and killed. So they'll just hide things in their paintings. Why not just say it outright? Why didn't just, Da Vinci write a treatise and say, well, I really understand some things about the Great Pyramid, and here are 6 things I understand that most people don't understand. There's hidden. Why didn't he do that? Because, we should understand that in the cancel culture, you lose your Twitter account if you say something. You'll be deplatformed. You'll be ridiculed. And so that's the reason things are encoded, because the ruling elite say the Earth's flat, or they say that the Earth is the center. And if you don't say that, it can be dangerous. So that's why things are encrypted. I think that's one of the main reasons. Paul, so I don't think everyone's capable, just like a lot of people have long since turned off. If anybody's watching what we're doing here, because like, oh, those guys are crazy, and that's fine. It takes a certain I don't know, to see it, you got to be able to see it, and if you don't see it, you don't see it, That's why Jesus told parables, I think. He's always telling parables because, he never said, listen, let me give you a theological lesson. Okay, there's a Father in heaven, he's got 16,000 angels and they're organized like this, the red ones are over here. He never said stuff like that. He said there was a man and he had 2 sons. There was a king and he threw a great feast. He's telling parables. This is the guy, this great spiritual teacher is telling us parables. So there's a reason for that, because he didn't want to get hung too quick, You
You're right.
Pharisees are going to act you.
Yeah. He must have been talking to thousands of people, and I believe the Romans were watching him as well. So he had to basically use metaphors for the whole of his speech. He was slightly revolutionary as well.
You better believe that Pontius Pilate and those Roman were worried to death about an insurrection, because it would be under their watch. It would be their name, and Caesar would have their head. So you better believe they were watching Jesus, just like the Pharisees were. They were jealous of this guy that was popular. Like you say, a lot of people gathered around him, and they didn't like that. They wanted to be, listen to me, I'm Dr. So-and-so. It's the whole Egyptology independent thing that we, have going on now. So.
Yeah, you're right. There was definitely a secret police, and these things are these things are not known about when people read the Bible, and we have to appreciate it in that context, I guess.
Oh yeah. There's plainly a hidden battle going on, and it's going on now. While there are elements of the age of Aquarius coming, I do see, I get that, and I can join in the crowd that says that. At the same time, you got to recognize there's a big Antichrist out there. I mean, what's the lockdown? What's the science for all this lockdown, Australia? What's the science for that? Like, try and tell me there's a science that says that changes anything. I mean,
we are locked down. We are locked down more than anyone else in the world. I mean, UK has, you know, thousands of cases, tens of thousands of cases. They're opening up. We have a handful of cases, and we're locking down because we're trying to eradicate it because we're an island. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's apparently this variant is not as deadly. So
yeah, I'm just saying, I don't spend any time studying this. My wife does. I get this from her. She stresses on it. But I do believe there's a conspiracy of sorts. There's a bigger agenda. There is truly an agenda to stop a plague. I get that. That's part of the story. But the other part of the story is they're using this to get more control governmentally, to experiment with certain things they're putting in the cocktails of the vaccines, because they're all experimental, and there's evidence for that. So there's a big brother. There's in 1984, there's this big government that's putting these requirements, and I don't really think you can scientifically prove that these lockdowns are doing what they think they're doing. But it can make them feel like they're doing something, so that's fine. I get that, but I just don't think it really is doing anything. I don't. But that's But I don't want to. I don't usually talk about this stuff. I really, that's why I get into Egypt. I don't want to talk about this political stuff. It's.
absolutely.
But I just this week that's come into connection for me, because somebody that was attacking me on the YouTube channel, I realized it came down to what we're talking about. It was like I was not giving a mainstream view, and he was rapping me for not giving a mainstream view. And so I realized if he represents a lot of people that have a mainstream view of what I was talking about, then then he's chipping away at me and hammering away. And a lot of people who think they shouldn't get the vaccine because they've read about, some of the things that do happen, and some of the stories are hidden, but you go on the web and you can see all kinds of stories about people that had all kinds of bad things happen from the vaccine. And it says right on the one when I got mine, it tells you right there, it's experimental and it's not an approved drug, and you could have all kinds of reactions. It says right there, it says it right on there. Yeah. And so, because of that, some people have decided I'm not going to get it, but then you hear about how they're pressured at work, the social pressure and stuff. And so, it ends up chipping away at you. And then it's like, you're a bad person if you don't get vaccinated, so now it's a moralistic thing. Now it's shaming, and that's the kind of dynamic that leads people like Da Vinci to hide things. I mean, we're in it while we're in it on the cusp of the age of Aquarius. We're also on the cusp of the Antichrist taking over. So,
yeah, isn't it strange? Not much has changed since the days of Savonarola, and indeed, and yeah, and I'm personally, I'm waiting as well. I'm waiting for more tests.
He was an amazing guy, Savonarola. Do you know that he had the whole Bible memorized?
See, I'm actually trying to find out things about him. You know more than me, but I'm trying to find, and I've noticed that there is no biography on him. Or at least I can't seem to find a biography on him.
Like anything, Jason Brashear, I think his name is. He's got the Archaics channel. He boasts that he's the only guy that doesn't, use internet sources, because if you search on the internet, there's a limitation. He's got a bunch of those older books. He has a bunch of older books, ancient books that he's got access to, and he's used, and he gets all his stuff from there. So, and as a matter of fact, I just bought this book because I wanted to get
on my channel too. Yeah, show me.
Yeah, I just bought this. It's an older book, but it's Andrew Collins, I know
that one, yeah.
From the Ashes of Angels, because the forbidden legacy of a fallen race, and he especially has a chapter on Egypt. I want to see what he's saying about the etymology of Egypt. So he's going, and as I was reading through this for the first time, I think yesterday, it's an older book, but I just bought it on, used. He's drawn from sources that are, again, you're not going to get these sources on the internet. It made me think of the Archaics channel. There's a bunch of sources that, again, if you do a Google search, you're going to be limited to this, certain, universe of things that won't include these books we're talking about that are about Savonarola, etc.
That's so true. I noticed that as well, Larry. That the things you read in books, and you've got a brilliant library behind you, the things you read in books you do not find online.
Yeah, especially the older ones and stuff. Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that deals with, but the thing is, it's so hard to sort out. They say that the Emerald Tablets, Enochian, it's so much stuff that's got the name Enoch or esoteric on it. It just was written in the Middle Ages, and it's not what people say it is. So you can't draw. That Emerald Tablets thing was a Muslim work in like the 7th century,
exactly.
Whatever it was. You can't prove it goes back to Enoch. You just can't. So. But there's enough things like these sources we've just talked about that exist that some people, I do think it's possible to piece together a true Enochian knowledge, a true esoteric hermeticism. But most of what goes on as hermeticism on the web, and current people that think they're hermeticists are really just mishmashes from the Middle Ages that really don't go back to Enoch, which is where hermeticism started.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so
and academics won't recognize that. They say it's early. They claim it's early Christian writings. Funnily enough.
Yeah.
Even though it actually even sounds like Egyptian hieroglyphic texts because it's short sentences.
Well, I've got a book on the library here. I don't know if I could pull it off right away, but it's typical of this viewpoint that Christianity came from the Egyptian teaching. So, Osiris, being killed and, all that is Horus, Osiris Horus is the story that led to Jesus. But what that fails to understand is sort of like what I was saying, the Greeks, well, really the Greeks got it from the Egyptians. So in this case, well, where did the Egyptians get this Osiris stuff? And it goes back to, I think, Enoch, because that's the source of because there's a short line from Enoch to Noah to Shem, who's the father of Egypt, according to Psalm 78. And so you got this short, tight connection in the human race there. And so the Hermeticist truths from Enoch, the true Enochian tables and the books of Enoch, which are fabled in the ancient world, the wisdom of Enoch and stuff, got its way into Egypt early on. And then Egypt, just like the Greeks, transformed a little bit, because I've studied ancient books of Egyptian geometry, and they're different than Euclid. It's a different geometry. They both work, but Euclid's is a different set of maxims and theorems than the Egyptian. And so there was an adaptation. So while the Greeks got their stuff from the Egyptians, they transformed it. And the same thing here, the Egyptians drew on this past from Enoch. So there's an etymology, and you can't say Egypt started it. And therefore, we have to, and so because of that, Enoch is quoted in the book of Jude in the New Testament as prophesying the second coming of Christ. So if that's true, Enoch was way back here. If he knew about the second coming of Christ, then he knew about the first coming of Christ. So he knew, so he began to put into the human race stories about the Messiah who would come. Those got into the human race because, again, the New Testament quotes Enoch, who existed long ago, prophesying the second coming. So again, if you knew the second coming, you knew a lot of other things. So that's where Egypt got the stuff that ended up becoming Christianity. They got it. So that's the etymology. Not many people know that, and I'm sure most people would disagree and just have shut the channel off right now. But that's really what happened. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I named this book. I use this, what do you call it? When each letter stands for something. It's Enoch. So it's the Egyptian New Orion Connection Hypothesis. But I also got the name Enoch because I really think that that the constellations were named by Enoch. Because here's the thing, Charles. Every effect has to have an adequate cause. For instance, 7-day weeks all around the world. What's the cause? Well, the Bible says that God created in 7 days. That's the strongest reason. I mean, for a few times, the Egyptians had 10 days, and French in the French Revolution had 10 days. So there have been some 10-day weeks, but most of the history of the world, Jews, is a 7-day week. So that effect has to have a cause. All right, so let's look at this effect. Almost every ancient zodiac, Sumerian, Chinese, go to where you want to, has the same set of names for the constellation Orion. That should absolutely not be true if evolutionary thinking was true, so that every Aboriginal society would have said, oh, look, I see a 57 Chevy up there. Oh, look, there's a telephone. And the constellations would have had all kinds of names that were disparate. But that's not what we find. The effect we find is the constellations are near unanimous in terms of their naming. When you go anciently, there are some little differences and stuff, but pretty much there's a single etymology. The only explanation for that is that there's a single origin for the naming, and that's Enoch. Enoch was, what Shishat was, in Thoth. That's what Enoch was in reality. Thoth is a fake god. The Thoth didn't exist. I hate to break anybody's bubble, but Egyptian gods aren't really gods. Okay, they don't really exist. They're nice thought patterns or something. But Enoch really existed, and he's the one. I think the word inch comes from Enoch because anciently there were no vowels. So Enoch is inch. You take the vowels off, and so you've got the remembrance.
They say it means once, so it means one.
And that could be because he taught one of the Hermetic teachings is everything is the one. The 4, 3, 2, 1. It's everything is the one. So, so I think Enoch is called the father of mensuration. So he's the original Thoth. Because Thoth is the number. He's the scribe. Enoch was the scribe. He was the number. He invented units or whatever. He's the original cubits, meters, inch guy, and so he's the one that helped name the stars. And those names stuck in the human race. Because again, every effect has to have an adequate cause. How do you explain the fact that there's a great unanimity through different cultures at different times around the world of the naming of the constellation Orion? It's because there's got to be a single origin. And I just think that's Enoch. So, people think that's mythical. Well, I think Thoth is mythical. I think Hermes is mythical, but I think Enoch is a real person. And he named the stars, and we've kept those down through the ages until today. Because if that's not the explanation, you got to give me one. You've got to come up with a cause that explains that effect. I've got mine. What's yours?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. There must have been ancient astronomy books written by Enoch. They were known about by the Giza pyramid builders, and those books have maybe they've been copied down through the ages because that's what chroniclers did, and eventually it became the works of Ptolemy or some other astronomer, and most of it was probably lost, but some of it maybe
they say that Enoch was going to put two tablets or monuments. So I think the Great Pyramid is one of them because that does have these things we're talking about. They're embedded in geometry and math, and so that's one of his writings. But I think it's possible. I think he did do other writings too. So it's going to be interesting what happens with this the void, because I'm reading right now Scott Creighton's book, The Great Pyramid Void Enigma. And so he looks at some ancient sources that aren't widely known that talk about what could be there. So remember, Da Vinci seems to have known that this void was there before the Scanned Pyramids team, came up with it. And one of the things is it seems to reflect the Grand Gallery. So you've got the Grand Gallery, and right above it, is this void. It seems to be about the same size, and there's still a debate, even though the three different teams that worked independently on Scanned Pyramids, even though they they worked separately and then they brought their conclusions together, and they still don't know if it's horizontal or if it's slanted at the same angle as the Grand Gallery, but it's above the Grand Gallery, and it's either horizontal or slanted at the same 26-degree angle that the Grand Gallery is. And one of the things that Crichton points out in here is that the 27 niches that are one of the enigmatic things about it, as you go up the Grand Gallery, there's these 27 niches sort of evenly spaced. Wow. Now, Ralph Ellis makes a very good case that when you do the division of the 27 divided by the length of the Grand Gallery, it equals pi. So those niches have something to do with pi, which is throughout the pyramid. But Scott Crichton says that there were 27 kings from the first king to Khufu. He lists he takes the Egyptian lists and he shows there were 20, and so there's 27 niches. And Alexander or Andre Pochon, the French writer.
Yes, he wrote a book engineering the Great Pyramid.
The Mysteries of the Great Pyramid. He says that there were 27 statues there. That those where those niches are, each one of them had a statue. And so now you got Scott Crichton finding a source saying there's 27 pharaohs from the first pharaoh to Khufu, and so he's saying that he's talking about what's going to be in that void. Now, Robert Grant, who's a tremendous person, he's a polymath. He's had visions about that room, and he said it's going to be the the grand opus. So when we do find, when finally Zahi Hawass or somebody punches through that camera that they're going to do up there, because I know for a fact that they're trying to find the least intrusive way to get to that void. And especially with this Egyptian government, because Zahi Hawass, as he begins to lose power, you know, he's slowly being pushed into the background. These younger guys are more, we want the world to know this stuff, you know, and because they want tourism, because they combined, you know, antiquities and tourism, a very strange marriage, you know, because tourism is, hey, come to Egypt. Egypt is great. And antiquities is, we sift every grain of sand. We move slowly through forensic scientists. So when you combine, you know, tourism and antiquities, which they did, that's why there's so much news coming out of Egypt now. Every little mummy that's found, bingo, it gets, because now they're giving it to, you know, tourism, and they, oh, come to Egypt, look what we found. So it's really becoming,
that ancient architects exposed. He said it's not really a golden city at all.
it's not, well, I'm the one that broke that story before he did. I was, it was funny. I was in Egypt at the time they made that discovery. I was in Luxor the next day. So I was in Luxor the day they were making it. So I've got my video I made there, not knowing, I hadn't realized that day. It took me the next day on the boat. You can see I got a YouTube video. I think I put it on YouTube, where I'm on my Nile cruise, and I made the video saying, shame on you, Egypt. You know, you slam me because I say all these crazy esoteric things. Look at you, you big liars. You're saying it's a golden city. It's not a golden city. It was found in 1930. It's a worker city.
Where the hell is the gold? Give me the gold.
Yeah, no kidding. There's no gold there at all. There's nothing. It's total. So there's an example of merging antiquities and tourism. You know, you get the Zahi Hawass hype, but the difference is the people behind the hype now is not like Zahi. I don't believe in that science. I don't believe in that science. Like, nah, Zahi is going to be out, and pretty soon there's going to be this more openness to that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I think they're definitely going to get the robots and go up there, and they're not going to hide it like Zahi. They're, you know, if they find some. So I do think it's going to be something big. So that's why, you know, I'm interested to find out, you know, things I didn't know about that's kind of prophesied what's going to be up there. So, you know, it's interesting. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get that book by Scott Creighton. That's fascinating. I've seen that on Amazon. That's quite popular. Yes.
Yeah, but you know, I told you though, you know, he did do a good job here. You know, this is the conspiracy to conceal the history of ancient Egypt. So Scott Creighton wrote The Great Pyramid Hoax. Now, I did a review of that. I think it's on my website, greatpyramid.us. And here's where he's a shyster. You know, so he's got to criminalize Howard Vyse, because Howard Vyse is the one that discovered the graffiti. So he's got to make a case that he's a fraud, and he hoaxed it.
The Zechariah Sitchin argument.
Yeah, exactly. And so he talks about the Zechariah Sitchin argument. He talks about how Sitchin was a liar. Okay, fine. He's got that part right. But he sort of implies, but maybe Sitchin was onto something. No, shut up. He forged it. Get out of it. Don't promote it. So okay, fine. So the thing he uses to demonize Vyse is when he ran for parliament, he paid people that voted for him. So that sounds like, on first blush, that guy is a liar, until you find out that was the culture and everybody did it. It's like, thanks for voting for me. Here's some money. So we think he's paying for votes, you know. That was the culture. And to his credit, Creighton quotes experts from that period, historians, who say, or even testimony at the time of Vyse, that say, it's the custom. Everybody did it. So guess what? So I make the tongue-in-cheek remark that we all know Scott Creighton travels in his car above the listed speed limit. So because in my world, like, you drive 80 all the time in a 70 here, and you never get ticketed. It's the culture. Culture overrides the law. It does in many places. Culture overrides the law. So Vyse might have known in a perfect world, it's not best to pay people, but everybody does it. And it's like, I'm rewarding the people that voted for me. What's so bad about that? Everybody did it. So the thing, and you look at the words that Creighton uses to talk about Vyse because of that, and there are really a lot of ad hominems. He really slams him on the basis of that. But Scott, you're not really, folks. He did what everybody did then. That doesn't make him a bad person. Therefore, you forged everything. Okay, so cut to the chase now. You know, he does do good scholarship, in bringing out a bunch of things. And I agree with his conclusion at the end of the book, in the last page or so. The Egyptian government should do a dispassionate study of those markings. They really should, because as I said, and Scott doesn't admit this, but Robert Pahl, Graham Hancock, yes, John Anthony West very strongly, Robert Schoch have all been up there. Scott Crichton hasn't, and they all said that stuff is real. That stuff is real. John Anthony West said in strongest terms, "You're crazy. You're full of, you don't know what you're talking about." John Anthony West said, "If you say that stuff's not real." Yeah. So what Scott Crichton says is that here's the linchpin to his argument. And think about it. He says that Vyse must have found, because I saw, Charles, when you did a program about this, you showed the 3 different names of Khufu that are up there. And one of them was the Horus name. Two of the names you have are the ones that have cartouches around them. Of the 5 royal names, 2 of them got the cartouche. But Mejedu, I think, is the Horus name, did not have a cartouche. And it was not known by any Egyptologist in Howard Vyse's day that was a name of Khufu.
There we go.
Nobody knew that was the name of Khufu, so he couldn't have forged it. He would have been the smartest Egyptologist in the world. And Crichton doesn't own up to how much he winks at that and says this. He sort of answers it without allowing that the charge exists. He doesn't talk about the charge, but knowing someone might bring it, he says this: Vyse found a group of hieroglyphics, hieratic script somewhere, and he took that and put it up. So he's taking stuff he doesn't even know, because he couldn't have known that the Mejedu, or however you pronounce that, the Horus name, whatever the Horus name for Khufu is, he couldn't have known that he was putting Khufu's name by putting that, because nobody in the world knew that at the time. So Crichton says he found a group of hieratic writings, kept it secret, which doesn't make sense, because Vyse was the kind of guy that every time he discovered something, he'd tell about it. But for some reason, he knows to hide.
Yeah, political career, absolutely.
And now I'm gonna forge it up there. And Crichton even admits that a lot of the graffiti up there is real. So now you got to be this detective to find out which stuff Vyse forged and which. So I said, yeah, let the Egyptian government do the work, because it should be real obvious with forensic study to find something that was written 4,500 years ago versus something that was written 200 years ago. There should be a big difference in some kind of forensic something. As the paint was 4,000. So it seems like it should be easy to prove. So I'm with Scott Crichton to say, but he's hiding in this erudite book, which has a lot of good stuff in it. He's hiding what I just said. So just like I told you, I said I wouldn't talk about that, but there was a certain channel in which I got shadow banned, today. Charles and I talked about it ahead of time. I got shadow banned. In other words, you write something in a comment, and then they take it out. They take it out. You still see it. Unless you log out to your account and come back in, you still think it's there, but they take it out. So I got shadow banned today.
You didn't hear.
And Crichton is hiding stuff. So I'm saying, why would somebody shadow ban me? It shows they're afraid of my argument. Doesn't it show that? Why else would you ban me? I didn't swear. I didn't use an ad hominem. I didn't say you're an idiot. I just said, why don't you think about this? And they take my comment off. Okay, Crichton, I'm saying the same thing to you. It's like, why do you not say the things I just said? Because it cuts your argument out, the main argument. So that a lot of good scholarship, but the bottom line that it's resting on is sand. And all the, there's a famous person, I won't mention his name, that said to me, if Khufu built the Great Pyramid, I'll eat my desk. Very famous person said that to me, I'll eat my desk, because he's read this book. He thinks there's no way Khufu built the Great Pyramid because of this book. You're hoodwinked, people. There's a foundation of sand here. Great, Scott Crichton's probably a nice guy, but you got to explain to me, Scott, why you hid that.
Yeah.
And you're going to sell thousands of books, and nobody's going to listen to this little interview with me and Charles. So you're going to be safe. But for anybody that wants to find out, read my review. Okay, so.
I think you're right. I mean, 5,000 years ago is definitely long enough. And mysterious enough and obscure enough to not have to resort to 10,000 years because we want a bigger number.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, you want a different narrative. I get that. I get how, that's understandable, that you'd want a different number. I mean, it's understandable, but you don't want your scholarship to, because really, stop and think about it. If you're really doing that, if you're shadow banning people, and this is true for the account I'm not mentioning here, you make a lot of money on tours. You're going to kick your business in the ass if it comes out that this stuff ain't the way you say it is. And Scott Crichton, yeah, you like to make money on books. I mean, or also, he doesn't hide the fact that he wants the other narrative. So to his credit, Scott Crichton says what he believes. And so that's what we're talking about right now. How can you live with yourself if you really slant the evidence to be what you want to believe? You're subject to your own dead religion. I mean, I swear to God, when I study something, I want it to take me where it's supposed to take me. This book that I wrote right here, I did not have the conclusions in mind that I came to at the end of this book. I didn't. I did honest research. I thought I was going to be, there's a star here, there's a pyramid here. I thought it was going to be simple, archaeoastronomy. There's a star here, there's a pyramid here. That's not what I got led to. In beginning that research, I was led somewhere else. And it really is profound. I think it's profound. Not that I'm a profound writer or anything. I probably did a crappy job of writing it, but what I was led to believe Orion is teaching, really, for now, not back in the fourth dynasty, for now, is profound. And so why you got to hide stuff? Why you got to shadow ban people? Because you're making money. If you're just out for truth, because I take some tours, I make a little bit of money, but my God, people know. Like the tour I'm having right now is not many people signed up because I'm spending so much time talking to you and making videos. I'm not sitting there stressing, okay, I got to make more money on this tour. It's like, I don't think about money. I got enough coming in to live on. That frees me up to be a real scholar. And yes. Say whatever you want to say about me, but and that's what I sense about you. You look at a lot of things in different ways, and that's what you got to do, Well, I think we should bring this to an end. There's a lot more we could talk about, but I've enjoyed the time, and I appreciate you, being willing to do this. Because actually, since I'm the one recording, this is going to be my video, so you're off the hook. You can use what part of it you want to or not.
It'll all go on the channel, and
what I'll do, maybe I'll put it up on YouTube so you can get it. I probably won't post this whole thing as a long thing. I'll probably take out snippets of it and do. And I'm just thinking out loud.
I'll post the whole thing. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's the best information I've heard about Giza. It's the best. Larry, you're amazing.
Well, okay, maybe I'll definitely put it on YouTube. I'll show it to you first, through a private link. And then we can talk about it, and I might put the whole thing out there. Because again, my sense is to put it in snippets. Because a lot of people, how long do you think we've gone right now? You got what?
We've gone about one hour, almost maybe 1 hour 23 minutes, something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's long for me. I don't usually post videos that long, but I could do it. If
people will like this. This is beautiful. This is a very nice interview.
Okay, well, I'll post it again. I'm going to post it on YouTube. Get it up there. Just make sure it's up there. I'll share it with you privately. Then we'll talk about it. And then if it seems at that time like it's the best thing to do, and that way it'll save me the time of chunking it, because that's what I tend to do. People tend to watch like 8-minute videos more than an hour, And so, that's part of my
some
thinking.
people listen in the background, while they're doing shows. Yeah,
that's true. And I will try. I turn all my videos into podcasts. I've got Anchor FM. I've got Anchor FM / Great Pyramid. I've got a bunch of podcasts, and they're mostly just the soundtrack from these things. And really, most of the talk we've done here at the end has just been, voice, you and me. I stopped doing the visuals early on. So yeah, it would make a good podcast for sure. Yeah. And which people listen to when they're running and all kinds of things. Yeah.
I'd love to put it all up. It was all very nice. It was amazing.
All right.
And I'm sorry we didn't do it soon. It was absolutely amazing. And I've learned a lot about how advanced the Egyptians were. The pre-Egyptians or the Egyptians, whatever you want to call them, whatever the old kingdom. And I believe, like you say, it was the old kingdom.
Yeah. Now, I wonder where I hit stop recording. If I just end the broadcast, it says, I see where it says, I see it up there. Okay, I see it up in the left-hand corner. So I'll just hit stop before we go out just to make sure it saves what we've done. So let me do that right now. I'm going to tell people goodbye. Hope you watch this.